Right now on Daf Mem Dalet and Beis, and we're quoting Rav. Rav is trying to tell us what is rove that makes the animal into treifa in the case of the kana, otherwise known as the gugolis. Gargeris, sorry. That was a bad mistake. Okay. Now, if you have a feeling that Daf Mem Dalid Omid Aleph was challenging, it's peanuts compared to what we're about to learn now. It's like a joyride compared to what we're getting into now. So don't hold your breath. Life becomes miserable at this point, not just for the animal that was shechted. Okay. So we have now two Lashonos of Rav. One Lashon says Rov Ovya, the Amile, another Lashon, another transmission of Rav is Rov Chalola. Now, the word Chalola in its shorish is Chalal. Chalal is a hallow. And Ovyo means its thickness. Ovi is thickness. Now, in order to appreciate what the heck is going on here, I have a diagram here. And frankly speaking, the diagram just gets me more and more confused. And I'd love to write a letter to the editor expressing my disappointment in this picture here. I think what he's showing you maybe is like an aerial view of the kana, the windpipe, the trachea. And he's showing you that if you look at the trachea, there's the thickness of the trachea and there's the hollow of the trachea. Hollow, I understand. The trachea is a windpipe, it's hollow. I'm not exactly sure what the thickness is, but maybe we'll get something out of the picture. I don't know. He's saying that there are two circumferences or two diameters, if you want to call it just about the diameter. One, the diameter of the kana from the perspective of its hollow, which is called halola. And then there's another diameter, which is the ovia, the majority of the ovi, of the thickness. The only trouble with this picture is that the way it looks here in the picture, the ovio is a longer thickness than the chalola. So which is going to come first when he does the shechita? Is it going to be the ovia or the chalola? Well, according to this picture, it would seem. Just 1 second. Wait a minute. 1 second. Something just occurred to me here. I mean, he puts one line on top of the other. I think that's what threw me off. I have a feeling. Just give me a second. The Chalola. after a majority thickness. Ah, so again, I'm just going to present to you what I think is going on over here. The windpipe is lined towards the top with a membrane, and that gives it more thickness on top. The chalala, the hollow, is equal throughout the entire trachea, the entire windpipe. So what happens is that the diameter of the ovi is going to be greater than the diameter of the hollow. Now, if you accept that, then when he shechts the trachea, then the first thing he's going to hit is the ovi. Again, keep in mind that that ovi is going to be shechted. We shouldn't think that it's like so stiff or so hard that it can't be slaughtered, it can't be severed. But in the sequence of it, the first severance will be on the upper part of the trachea where there's a greater diameter of thickness because of that extra membrane that makes the trachea wall thick on top. So if you accept the second transmission of Rav, namely Rov Chalala, then that's going to be a kula because until he gets to Rov Chalala, it's going to take a little extra time. Again, we're talking about fractions of a second. So by delaying the process of which, as we saw, the language of Psukas Hagargeres Beruba, right? The trachea is severed in its majority. Then by assuming Rov Chalol, you're being Mekil because you have a delay process. Hahu Psukas Hagargeres Tasoy Lekami de Rav. They had a case of Psukas Hagargeres that came into Rav. Yosef Kabodikle Berov Ovya. So Rav completely ignored his Rov Chalol according to that transmission, and he did Rov Ovya. Now, if that be the case, I think he declared that the animal would be treif. Let me just make sure. All right, I don't see it here right now, but check me out on this. And we'll see it in the next few lines. Amru le Rav Kahana Rav Asi Rav Liman Etanu Rabbeinu B'Rov Chalala. The way we heard your statement in that transmission, you told us that Psukas Hagargeres, Psukas Hagargeres only applies to Rov Chalala. And therefore there's room to be Mekil, as we said before, because Rov Chalala is lower down on the trachea. So therefore, Shadre Lekame de Rabbi Bar Chana, Rav apparently thought that Rabbi Bar Chana was the final word, so he sent this case to Rabbi Chana, Bod Kubarov Chalol of Akshara. Oh, very good. So initially Rav said it was treif, and he was building himself on Rov Ovya. But then, when he sent it to Rabbi Bar Chana, because these Amoraim said, Rav, that's what you taught us, Rov Chalola, so therefore, Rabbi checked out the Chalola, and he found out that it was less than Rov and Akshara. Not only that, and this is going to be the whole next sugya, Rava not only was masher the basar, but even ate the basar. He bought some of it from the owner. Zavan mine betleisar itzere pshite bisra. Okay, a certain amount of value of meat. So that's more or less the end of the halachic hilchas shchita and trefos dimension of the sugya. From now on, we want to know about how Rabbah could have possibly overruled Rav once Rav had already paskin that it's treif, and then we want to know how Rabbi Bar Chana could paskin that it's kosher and then eat it himself. That doesn't look too good to the world. So first of all, how did Rabbi Bar Chana have the halachic permission to be makil on something that Rav was machmir? Osar ein chaver rashoy lahatir. Shani hachid de Rav lo osar mesa. Rav never actually enunciated those magic words, this meat is treif. All he did was he checked out the ovya, and obviously based on the fact that he checked out the ovya, the animal is treif, but he never issued a formal ruling, and therefore Rabbi Bar Bar Chana has the right to issue a final ruling. Frekte Gemara, if Rabbi Bar Bar Chana himself was the chacham, he was the final ruler who ruled on this meat, then how could he eat from it? The Torah says, with regard to Yechezkel, and we've learned this in the past, what daf was it on, I don't remember. You'll take a look here in the Ein Mishpat and the Maseches Hashas, that when Hashem was kind of putting Yechezkel down, and Yechezkel came to defend himself, he says, "Va'omar aha Hashem Elokim, why are you being so down on me? You forced me to eat barley cakes baked over a fire fueled by human waste." He says, "Hine nafshi, during my entire life, lo mituma, I never became tummy. Nevelu treifa lo achalti b'nurei arat. I never ate nevelu treifa." And in each case, we want to know what's Yechezkel boasting about. No, nobody eats nevelu treifa. Lo ba b'fi b'sar pigel. I never ate from pigel. Nobody eats from pigel. It's an isakaris. I mean, these are the what do you call it? The badges that Yechezkel wears over here. So hine nafshi lo mitama shalo harti bayom lovely day tum balayla. Nevelu trefelo chalti shalchalti basa kos melam. In other words, if the animal was dying, you remember that's called a misukenes. We had a whole sugi about that, and they started yelling shechted, shechted. Don't wait. Any minute now the animal could drop dead. Then I wouldn't eat from that meat after they shechted it. If any chacham had already rendered a decision to permit the meat, but obviously there was an issue, there was some sort of question about whether it was kosher or not, I wouldn't eat from it. Even though Yechezkel is a Kohen, and he certainly is allowed to eat, even a non-Kohen is allowed to eat from the meat before they were merim, before they removed those what's it called trouble is the English always throws me off. Anyway, we see here that once an animal was questioned and the suffix came in front of the Rav, then Yechezkel would never eat from such meat. Rabbi Bar Bar Chana, on the other hand, again, it only says he bought the meat, but presumably he ate from the meat, even though there was a shaila, and Rav went through Rov Ovya and was about to declare that it's treif. So Gemara answers, Hani Mili, when is a tzaddik and a Charedi supposed to go so far? That's Milsa D'Italia B'Svara. In other words, don't rely on the final decision of a scholar, of a sage, when the sage is only giving you a svara. But Rabbi Archana Agmei Sama. Oh, Rabbi Archana had a halacha l'Moshe Sinai that it depends on Rov Chaloa. Did I get that right? 1 second. Right. Rov Chalola. So again, I'm going to repeat this for the third time. Rov Chalola is a kula to be machshir the animal because of that delay that we spoke about before. And since Rabbi Baruch Hu had a halacha Moshe Sinai in terms of psikas hagargeres that it depends upon Rov Chalola, therefore he could rely on that. It wasn't svara. In other words, if you would be makil and permitted based on svara, then you have to get nervous that maybe they would overrule that svara. How could he eat from the meat after he himself paskin? People are going to think, the onlooker suspects him, that maybe he was makil and he was mat to the basa, not because he was convinced that it was mutter, because he wanted to eat from the meat. The Sanya we learned in the Brisa, Don es hadin, let's say you're a judge and you ruled in favor of one of the two litigants, Zika v'charev, he said that this litigant is exempt from payment, this litigant has to pay, or time v'tiher, right? He ruled on an item, is it tar, is it tummy? Asa v'hitir, chen edim, and the same thing that applies not only to judges and poskim, but also to edim, she'idu, is according to the Tanakama, kulon rasham likach. The judges and the witnesses, according to the strict letter of the law, are allowed to enjoy that which they said was tahar, that which they paskin was mutter, but chachamim amru. But nevertheless, the chachamim declared, archek min akira min adomalo, stay far away from something that seems to be suspicious. So therefore, Rav Bar Chana should not have been buying and eating from this meat. He himself was matir the meat. Zokta Gemara Hani Mili, when do we say that it appears like impropriety? That only is midi de mazban v'shuma. That's something where they don't have a definite way, definite method of determining its market value, because they do a shuma, it's an appraisal. They don't weigh it, they don't measure it. So therefore, the onlooker doesn't know whether or not he, the judge, or the Adam paid a fair price. There's room to suspect him of impropriety. But hacha, here in the case of Rabbi Baruch Chana, maskela muchach. They weighed the meat to determine in an objective, absolute way its full price, and he didn't get any bargains. He paid the full price. He gained nothing at all. He could have bought it somewhere else. And Ki Ha de Rav will have a story to corroborate this. Shara Tarftiv. He was matir a suffix treifa, v'zavan mina bisra. And then he bought some of its meat. Amalei Bas Rav Chizda. Now keep in mind that Rava was married to the daughter of Chizda, so his own wife said to him, Abba Shari Bukhra, when my father of Chizda, Yoshver, when he would be matir a bechar, like determining that it had a blemish and so forth and so on, lo zaven minei bisra, he would refrain from eating that meat. He would not buy that meat because it looked to the onlookers as impropriety, that maybe he was matir the bechar in order to eat from its meat, to buy its meat, etc. Amalei, Rava said to his wife, Hani mili bukhra. That only applies to the case of a bechar. The ashumam is daven because the bechor is not weighed. You can't weigh the animal that's a bechor because of the insult to the kedushas bechor, and therefore people are going to say, you know what? Maybe he got a good deal over here, with this bechor. So therefore, your father Rav Chisda would avoid buying the meat of the bechor. But here, in the case of treifa, right, where we decided, and Rabbi Paskin it's not treif, miskala mucha, the value that I paid to buy the meat, it's crystal clear to everyone because they weighed the meat, and meat is 10 per pound, and that's what I paid. I could have bought it elsewhere. My ika, why would they even suspect me in impropriety? Maybe I took the prime cut. Is kol yuma zavnile. They treated me with such respect in the area where I lived that they would always cut for me the prime cut on a daily basis. So I'm not being treated in any special way over here than I'm treated normally. There's no appearance of impropriety. Amar Rav Chisda, Ezu Talmid Chacham Zeh Haroa Treifa Liatzmo. How do you gauge if a person has the integrity of a Torah scholar? And the Rav Chisda says he paskins on his own animal, which is worth hundreds, that it's treif. V'yomer Rav Chisda, Ezehu, to whom do we apply the pasuk in Mishlei? Sone matanos yichya zaroa treifali atzmo. He looks at his own meat that was slaughtered, and he says, that meat, I checked it out, is treif. Now, why is that called Sone Matanos Yichya? Just 1 second. Such a person certainly abhors gifts from others, as even the natural desire for one's own property does not induce him to refrain from ruling that is forbidden. Okay, I don't know. I find that a little bit. All right. Darash Mar Zutra Mishmei Rav Chisda. Kol Misha Kore V'Shona. Kore means Torish B'Chsav. Shona means Torish Valpeh. V'roa Treifa Liatzmo. Or, for example, a person who paskins on his own meat that it's treif. Or Shimesh Talmid Chachamim. That doesn't mean he brings a cup of tea to the Rosh Yeshiva. It means he learns the Rav's way, the way he thinks, the way he analyzes, the way he relates to life. And all of HaKosvomer for all these three above is David HaMelech says in Tehillim, Yegia kapecha ki sochel ashrecha v'tov. Now, why is this Yegia kapecha? I guess because he's so honest and he overcomes any natural desire, to be matir something that's his own property, then he certainly is not jealous. He doesn't covet others. And therefore he'll eat from his own yigia kapai. This, by the way, supports the Rambam sheet, if you ask me, that the Rambam says that Yigia Kapecha, one should not live off Torah and make money off Torah. He should make money by working. Rav Zvid Omar, Zochem Enochel Shnei Olamos, Halam Hazev, Halam Haba. This sounds like we're being Messiah here, but we're only at the beginning of Elu Trefus. Ashrecha Bolam Hazev, Tovach Halam Haba. Rabbi Loza Kiavi Meshadri Lemi Bein Esiyah Midi Lo Shaka. When they would send Rabbi Loza something from the Beis Hanasi, he refused to accept a gift. And he wasn't worried about the fact that they would be insulted. When they invited him for a meal, Lo Ozel, he refused to go. Omar. But he told the Nasi, don't get insulted here. Lo Kaboy Marli Echi. Don't you want me to live? You want to give me a gift? Well, somebody who abhors a gift is going to live. Rabbi Zera Kimeshadri Leilo Shakil. when the Nasi would send something to Abzera, again, he wouldn't accept the gifts. I wonder if you win a lottery, maybe that's different. But nevertheless, if the Nasi would invite him for a meal, he would go. Omar, and he would declare, and with this we'll conclude, Isyakure hudum isyakibe. On the contrary, if I come to eat when they invite me, that gives them a sense of prestige. So by accepting the invitation, it's not so much that I want the gift, but rather I want to do them a favor. Okay, so we had a little bit of break here towards the end from Trefus. Not going to last too long. I wish you a great Shabbos if you can enjoy Shabbos and yet learn the next sugya about Nikva Knafa, which I tried to understand, but I didn't get that far. Maybe the Neshama Yisera of Shabbos will he'll give you a second shot. Okay, then. So what can I tell you? Life has been very, very challenging for me. I don't know. What can I tell you? Just want to try to get to the finish line. I've been learning Daf Yomi for 5.5 years or so. I don't know how long. I don't want to give it up. I want to finish it. All right, have a great Shabbos. And for us, it's Shabbos in Har Nof. We're hosting 85 people for 3 meals for the Sheva Brachos of our granddaughter. So get a mazel tov. Kol tov. Bye-bye.